Welcome back, and now for the news in detail. We begin with our top story. The US says it is ready to engage in serious negotiations with Iran without preconditions to preserve global peace. In a letter to UN, American envoy Kelly Croft said the killing of Iranian commander Qasem Soleimani was self-defense. Croft pledged to take more action as necessary in the Middle East to protect US personnel and interests. She said the killing of Soleimani was justified under Article 51 of the UN Charter. Croft said US airstrikes in Iraq were in response to an escalation in recent months by Iran and its militias on US forces. She said the aim was to deter Iran from supporting aggression and degrade its ability to conduct attacks. In another development in Iraq, 2 rockets have struck near the US embassy inside Baghdad's Green Zone, which houses government buildings and foreign missions. No casualties have been reported in the attack. The Iraqi military says the projectiles were Katyusha rockets. Just before midnight, 2 loud blasts followed by Green Zone security sirens were heard in the capital. No one has claimed the responsibility. The attack came a day after Iran launched ballistic missiles at Iraqi bases housing American forces. Meanwhile, NATO has agreed to do more for stability in the Middle East and fight international terrorism. Its Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg spoke with the US President Donald Trump on the telephone after Iran attacked US bases in Iraq. Later, in a statement, NATO said Trump asked the Western alliance to take up a more prominent role. It said Stoltenberg and Trump agreed to stay in close contact on the issue. Meanwhile, Iran's foreign ministry spokesman Abbas Mousavi said NATO is now a tool to justify America's evil political goals. He said regional stability can only return when the terrorist acts of trans-regional forces operating under NATO come to an end. Amid growing tensions in the Middle East, Japan has backed the United States' measured response to Iranian missile strikes on American troops in Iraq. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe urged everyone to exercise self-restraint. He said Japan will continue diplomatic efforts to ease the situation in the Middle East. Yesterday, the Foreign Ministry said Japan has temporarily closed its embassy in Iraq for safety reasons. The ministry called for Japanese nationals to leave Iraq and refrain from traveling to Iran. Moreover, Iran and China envoys have met Pakistan's Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa to discuss the crisis in the Middle East. Chinese envoy Yao Jing and Iranian ambassador Mohammad Ali Hosseini met General Bajwa at the Army headquarters in Rawalpindi. Army spokesperson Major General Asif Ghafoor said the recent US-Iran standoff in the Middle East was discussed at length. Earlier, talking to the US Defense Minister Mark Esper over phone, General Bajwa said Pakistan supports peace and wants the situation to de-escalate. General Bajwa said Islamabad wants all concerned parties to resolve the conflict through diplomatic engagements. Moving on to Turkey, where the President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and Russia's President Vladimir Putin have called on the warring sides in Libya to declare a ceasefire from January the 12th. The joint statement was issued after a meeting between the 2 leaders in Istanbul. They also urged an end to violence in Syria's Idlib. European leaders have warned Libya's Prime Minister against allowing Turkish troops on its soil. Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj visited Brussels to speak with the EU officials and Germany's foreign minister. The German foreign minister said they want Libya to avoid becoming the venue for a proxy war. As winter descends in Syria, makeshift camps and shelters have become an unlikely refuge for tens of thousands of people fleeing the ongoing civil war. Freezing winter weather has piled pressure on the already inadequate infrastructure for over 250,000 people. This report has the details.
Millions of displaced Syrians will spend a bitterly cold winter in the unending Syrian crisis, and the situation is getting worse after increased bombardment by Syrian and Russian warplanes triggered a mass exodus in Idlib. Over 130 families live in Samir camp in northwestern Syria. All tell similarly sad stories of displacement from homes, fear of the biting cold, and lack of water, food, and electricity.
We need food. We need a lot of things like blankets, tents. Actually, we need everything. The cold and rainfall is too much. We escaped here from Assad's bombing, but living here is more difficult than Assad's bombing. Winter is very difficult. We don't have firewood. Our tent was flooded. We find old shoes and pieces of clothes to warm up and burn them. We need everything here. They hit where we came from. We came here and now we can't even warm up. We ate 3 eggs and bread at noon. We don't have dinner in the evening. We eat what we find. I only have 7-8 liras in my pocket. I don't remember what we ate yesterday. We might just have eaten bread.
On Tuesday, the United Nations urged global powers to renew a system for cross-border aid delivery to Syria that is due to expire this week, after China and Russia last month vetoed a resolution that would have allowed continued aid deliveries for a year.
Many of the displaced are now living in tents and makeshift shelters in inhospitable places, exposed to the elements and bitter winter temperatures. This latest wave of displacement compounds an already dire situation in Idlib.
The total number of displacements in the region has risen to 700,000 over the last 8 months. The vast majority of them are women and children who currently have nowhere to go.
Moving on to Israel, where the defense minister says his country aims to boost the number of Jewish settlements in the occupied West Bank to 1 million within a decade. Currently, there are 400,000 settlements in the area. Speaking in Jerusalem, Naftali Bennett said the U.S. no longer considers Israeli settlements illegal. Bennett challenged the term occupied, saying they are not occupiers in their homeland. The Palestinian Authority has condemned Bennett's remarks. The Fourth Geneva Convention on the Laws of War explicitly forbid moving civilians into occupied territories. The European Union President Ursula von der Leyen says the EU is ready to develop an unprecedented partnership with Britain after Brexit. During a speech at the London School of Economics, Leyen said January 31st will be a tough and emotional day when Britain ends its membership of the Union. Leyen said the post-Brexit partnership will not be the same as before. She said Britain will not get full access to European markets after Brexit unless it makes significant compromises. Leyen warned without an extension of the transition period beyond 2020, agreement on a new partnership is impossible. In a rare development, Britain's Prince Harry and Duchess of Sussex, Meghan Markle, are stepping back as senior royals to seek financial independence. The couple announced plans to balance their time between the UK and North America while honoring their duty to the Queen. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex say they made the decision after many months of reflection and discussions. Buckingham Palace, in a statement, said discussions with Harry and Meghan over their future role are at an early stage. Last year, Prince Harry admitted to disagreements with his brother, Prince William, second in line to the throne. Now we include Indian-occupied Kashmir in our news bulletin. The ambassadors of European countries have refused to join India-guided tour to occupied valley. The Indian government planned to take 16-member envoy delegation to propagate its one-sided view of the situation in the valley. The details are in this report.
The European countries have said they want an independent tour of the valley. The decision was reached after New Delhi refused to assure the delegates will be able to meet arrested Kashmiri politicians. Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government refused to commit that the visiting delegation will be able to talk to people directly. In October last year, India conducted a similar stint, taking far-right EU parliamentarians on a private tour. The effort backfired badly as the European Union said it has no link with the visit and MEPs went to India in a personal capacity. The valley is reeling under Indian curfew and communications blackout for the past 158 days.
Moreover, in India, the Student Union of Jawaharlal National University has called for citizens' march against an attack on the university. A masked mob attacked the university in New Delhi on Sunday, beat students and teachers, leaving 34 injured. The civil rights activists will also join the rally at Mandi House area in the capital. The demonstrators will demand the resignation of VC of the university during their protests. Meanwhile, Indian media reported JNU students informed Delhi police 3 hours before the attack, but no action was taken. In Australia, authorities have issued fresh warnings and evacuation notices across the heavily populated southeastern region. They predict hot weather from today, which can fan raging bushfires threatening several towns and communities. A disaster notice in Victoria State was extended by 2 days, and people in danger zones told to leave. New South Wales State has committed an additional $1 billion Australian dollars for rebuilding. Meanwhile, tennis star Roger Federer, Serena Williams and Rafael Nadal will take part in an exhibition match to raise money for a bushfire relief fund on January the 15th. 26 people have died and thousands displaced as monster fires scorched over 10 million hectares of land. More stories to follow, but right after a short break. Welcome back. Mexico has proposed joint goals for science, tourism and sustainability at the meeting of the Community of Latin American and the Caribbean States. 29 representatives of the 31-nation body met in Mexico City. Latin America has been in rife with political instability, public unrest and slow economic activity. Venezuela's political stalemate and the vacuum in Bolivia following contentious elections has divided the region. Mexico's Foreign Minister Marcelo Ebrard talked of regional unity in the first summit since 2017.
The common standing amongst us is to present issues in a united way in the international community. That is what we agree on. There are many disagreements, but there are more agreements. We have a tendency to amplify disagreements, and now we're going to project what there is agreement on.
The United States has imposed sanctions on the South Sudan first Vice President Taban Dangai. It is Washington's latest move to pressure the country's politicians to form a unity government. The Treasury Department alleged Guy directed the killings of opposition politician Agri Idri Izibon and human rights lawyer Dong Samuel Luok. South Sudan's presidential spokesman Atani Wek Atani said the move will worsen the situation in the country. The spokesman said there was no evidence any government officials were involved in the killings cited by the Treasury. Estonia has been ravaged by fentanyl for almost 2 decades, but is now succeeding in the fight against the man-made drug. This addictive opioid is 50 times stronger than heroin and killed 32,000 people in the US last year. Is what happened in Estonia possible for the US as well? Or in this report.
A computer hard drive holds a deadly secret: 150 grams of the synthetic drug fentanyl. At 50 times stronger than heroin, just a few grains can trigger an overdose, meaning each of these ready-to-sell wraps holds enough fentanyl to kill. These drugs were seized by police in Estonia, which for almost 2 decades has led the EU in fentanyl deaths per capita. In the tiny Baltic country of just 1.3 million people, the drug has claimed over 1,600 lives.
I remember it was 2001, I think, when fentanyl came. It was heroin before. I OD'd 4 times per month. And a lot of people died. Yeah, that was June or July, I remember.
Jan Waert spent 6 years addicted to fentanyl and other drugs. But now he's part of the solution, coordinating clinics to help those affected, like this mobile harm reduction unit in the capital Tallinn. This public health drive has helped Estonia engineer a remarkable drop in death rates, making it one of the world's rare success stories in the fight against the deadly opioid.
Fortunately, in the last 2 or 3 years, and driven by the Central Criminal Police, the main middlemen and people who brought fentanyl to the Estonian market have been caught and brought to justice.
The social problems like poverty and joblessness that fueled the spread of hard drugs in Estonia remain. With fentanyl having all but disappeared, experts say that other drugs are taking its place.
Honda has unveiled its augmented driving concept at the Consumer Electronics Show in Las Vegas. It is the Japanese car maker's vision for the future of autonomous driving. This report has more.
As more and more vehicles can drive themselves, Honda believes people might miss driving their own car. With their new concept, the driver could switch from autonomous to semi-autonomous or manual mode.
We are trying to recreate the feeling of moving on foot with a vehicle, because your feet move automatically in response to your thoughts and feelings, like autonomous driving. We wanted to make mobility that is able to respond to such human feelings and thoughts.
The autonomous driving system will be constantly on standby, ready to intervene and take back control if necessary.
The augmented driving concept steering wheel works by simply tapping it on the top to start, bringing it towards you, and then to accelerate, you simply push forward on it, and I am accelerating.
But Toyota's LQ concept car takes autonomy one step further.
This particular vehicle is very special because Toyota is making inroads to becoming more of a mobility company. So instead of having vehicles that are just getting you from point A to point B, we're really focusing on creating vehicles that are an extension of yourself.
The concept is part of Toyota's plan to build a prototype city of the future in Japan. It will be powered by hydrogen fuel cells and function as a lab for autonomous cars, smart homes, and artificial intelligence.
Lows and the highs of the business world now. The World Bank has forecast a slight strengthening of global economic growth from 2.4% to 2.5% this year. It is a global economic prospects report. The World Bank said policy consistency by governments can further strengthen the projected recovery. The report said the growth in developing economies is expected to increase by 0.5% to over 4%. It said a dip in manufacturing will slow growth in developed economies to nearly 1.5%. The report has highlighted the risk of a fresh global debt crisis after warning of the biggest buildup in borrowing in the past 50 years. Stock markets in Asia have recovered after the apparent easing of tensions between Iran and the United States. Investors have breathed a sigh of relief after US President Trump's comments played down the fears of further escalation in the Middle East. Nikkei 225 is leading the gains, trading over 2% higher. Hong Kong's Hang Seng and Seoul's Kospi have gained over 1%. The Shanghai Composite is trading 0.75% higher. Meanwhile, oil prices are trading over 0.5% higher after tumbling nearly 5% last night. Time to take a look at the weather situation from around the globe. And that's all for now. With the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at Indus.News.